to get us started, I would like to introduce Dr. Richard Carey, who is the Director of the Watershed Planning Program. Good morning, Richard.
Good morning, Judy. Good morning, everyone. And thank you for joining us. Okay, so next slide. So I'm just going to give a brief overview of the Watershed Planning Program and what we do. So the Watershed Planning Program is a statewide program with a mission to protect, enhance, and restore the quality of the waters of the Commonwealth. Through our work, we regularly engage with a diverse set of internal and external stakeholders, including multiple programs within MassDEP, sister agencies, federal partners, governmental organizations, non-governmental organizations, and the regulated community. We are organized into 5 sections that each have a different technical focus under the Clean Water Act: surface water quality standards, water quality monitoring, data management and water quality assessment, total maximum daily loads, and non-point source management. Each section in the Watershed Planning Program is led by a section chief. I will next provide more information on the work that we do within our program. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. All right, so all 5 sections in the Watershed Planning Program are linked under the Clean Water Act in an iterative process to continually monitor, assess, and protect or restore water quality. The Surface Water Quality Standards section defines water quality goals for water bodies, develops statewide pollutant criteria to protect public health and aquatic life, and periodically revises the Massachusetts Surface Water Quality Standards to reflect the latest available science. The Water Quality Monitoring section collects physical, chemical, and biological surface water data across the Commonwealth to support multiple objectives, such as water quality assessments and measuring the effectiveness of water quality management programs. The Data Management and Water Quality Assessment section manages surface water data and assesses surface water quality conditions by evaluating available statewide data relative to the surface water quality standards. The Total Maximum Daily Load section develops TMDLs and other watershed plans to restore impaired surface waters and protect high-quality waters. The Non-Point Source Management section develops and implements the Massachusetts Non-Point Source Management Program Plan to prevent, control, and reduce non-point source pollution through grant opportunities. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our section chief of the Non-Point Source Management section in the Watershed Planning Program, Dr. Padmini Das.
Thank you, Richard. Hello, everyone. I would like to start with the introduction of our grant team at WPP. So I'm Padmini Das. I oversee the Non-Point Source Management section. And in our section, we manage 2 federally funded grant programs. Megan?
Hi, I'm Megan Selby. I manage the 604B grant program, which is a planning grant.
Hi, I'm Malcolm Harper. I coordinate the Clean Water Act Section 319 Competitive Non-Point Source Grant Program. This program is designed for implementation. Judy?
I forgot I was muted. Good morning, everyone. I'm Judy Rondo. I am the Non-Point Source Outreach Coordinator. And Seema.
Good morning, all. I'm Seema Ravantali. I recently graduated from UMass Amherst from Department of Environmental Conservation, and now I'm working with department as an intern on BIL Equity and Climate Assessment. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Emily. I'm the NPS Management Section intern, and I'm developing the Inspire NPS Capacity Building Tool.
And with that, other than these two federally funded grant programs, WPP also manage a state-funded grant program, and that is managed by the Data Management and Water Quality Assessment section. Richard Chase is the section chief of that section. Bob?
Yeah, and I'm Dr. Robert Smith. I coordinate the Water Quality Monitoring Grant, which is designed to fund efforts to collect data for assessment purposes.
Vivian?
Sorry about that. I'm Vivian Jima. I manage the grants and fiscal aspect of the programs over in WPP.
Thank you, everyone. And in this section, I would like to give a brief overview of our grants. And I would like to start with the stormwater management grants. And MassDEP does manage the grants in two different ways, manage the stormwater, provide the support in two different ways. One is through point source management, and the other one is through non-point source management. And for point source management, anything that is required by the NPDES MS4 permit could be supported by a state-funded grant program called Stormwater MS4 Municipal Assistance Grant Program. And this grant program can support anything that is required by the permit, for example, like planning, resource sharing, and implementation of those plans. And from the non-point source management side, 319 grant program has the most major funding, and anything that is required by the NPDES MS4 permit cannot be funded by 319. So these two are the two different sides of one coin, and with absolutely no overlap. So the major goal of the 319 is to prevent, control, and abatement of NPS pollution. And we have three different type of projects to achieve that goal. And most importantly, the implementation projects to restore the impaired water. Healthy Waters project to meet the goal of protection of healthy waters. And the third project is to build the capacity for basically for the 319 implementation projects that has a lot of requirements, and those requirements, so the capacity building projects help the communities to build those requirements so that they can apply for the implementation projects. And other than this project type, we also use 604B grant program as a major capacity building grant for the 319 projects. So if you see the 319 projects are mostly action grants, and 604B is the planning grant. So the most major goal for 604B is assessment and planning. And our regular funding of 604B, we call it base funds. Other than the base funds, from last year onwards, we started receiving additional funding under the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, BIL funds, which comes with a very strong requirement or encouragement for enhancing equity and climate resiliency. And I'm now going to go into a little more details of these two grant programs. And we'll start with the water quality assessment. So MassDEP's watershed planning program is responsible to do the water quality assessment. And the data is listed in the 305B list as the impaired water, as the 303D list, and non-impaired water. So unlike 604B, which doesn't have any match requirements, 319 grant program has a 40% match requirement. And both we use substantial amount of our federal funds to support the sub-awarded grants. For the 604B, we use at least 40% of the fund, and remaining fund is used for our program support. Same requirement is there for BIL as well. The only difference for BIL is that we are using some of our program funds to currently conduct a statewide equity and a climate assessment. Now, as I mentioned, that the major goal for 604B is assessment and planning. And here I'm going to show a few deliverables. This is not an exhaustive list. It's just example. Few deliverables that helps to meet the assessment and planning goal for 604B. So here are some of the planning deliverables. And for non-impaired water, the planning is through the healthy water protection planning that could be done by 604B grant. And for impaired water, there are different types of planning that could be done by the support of 604B grants, starting with developing a 9-element watershed-based plan, conceptual design, site location, and maps, cost of estimation of the best management practices, or BMPs. So all of these can be supported by both base or BIL funds. And also with the BIL funds, we are starting to support the climate resiliency planning as well as environmental justice capacity building under the next RFR round. For assessment, external water quality monitoring can be supported by assessment. That's one example under MassDEP approved QAP. And the data needs to be delivered to WPP, and then WPP will manage the data to put it in the 305B list. Now, for 319, as I mentioned, the most important goal is to restore the impaired water. And that's why the most amount of funds also goes to support the implementation projects. And the major deliverable for this kind of projects are the pollutant removal numbers. So each year when we report our projects to EPA, we need to provide the pollutant removal numbers, and that is the most important deliverable. And what happens if for any reason any construction project doesn't happen, or there is a problem of completion of the projects, we cannot report the pollutant removal numbers, then these projects are not going to be considered an implementation project anymore. So this is a very important and critical deliverable that we must meet. And the goal is to restore the impaired waters. And as we know, not all the time one grant project cannot get us to this goal. So sometimes multiple rounds are needed to get to the final goal, which is the delisting of the impaired waters. Other than the restoration of the impaired water, the second goal is to protect the healthy waters of the Commonwealth. And for that, we use 319 fund to support healthy water protection projects. For these projects, now the plans developed under the 604B healthy water protection planning can be implemented through 319 fund through the healthy water protection projects. Now, for the impaired water, all the planning could be very useful to support the implementation projects, meet all the prerequisites for the implementation projects. For example, watershed-based plan, conceptual design, site location and maps, cost of estimation. These are requirement for 319 implementation projects. And all of those requirements can be met through a 604B grant before that. And climate resiliency planning climate resiliency is a preferred element. So if a project shows that you have adaptive management plan, you are going to get more points in the selection criteria. So that is a very good way to outstand your projects through doing the climate resiliency planning. And environmental justice capacity building under 604B will help us to meet the Justice 40 goal for the 319. So other than the 604B projects, as I mentioned in the previous slide, we use some program funds to do capacity building projects under 319 as well. And for example, outreach and education, some technologies transfer is funded under this category. Since 2020 onwards, we are having regional coordination program, which builds capacity at the regional level. And currently 4 regional planning agencies are our partners through this program. And we also started the agricultural coordination. And for the upcoming RFR, this is the first time we are starting the environmental justice coordination program, which we can also consider as part of the implementation projects. And I will share a little more details about that later. So basically, from the deliverable point of view, capacity building projects pretty much have the same deliverables to support 319 implementation projects. So as I have been mentioning implementation projects, and it would be good to explain what do we really mean by implementations, like implementation of what. So basically implementation of a 9-element watershed-based plan that is required by EPA for any implementation projects, 319 implementation projects. And let me show you the current status of MassDEP accepted implementation projects. So here we are. That means that we have way more room to make the watershed-based plan for the other watersheds. So for the communities, as a starting question is that, do you have a MassDEP accepted watershed-based plan? If the answer is yes, then you are ready for a 319 implementation project. If the answer is no, then it's the best thing to do is apply for a 604B grant and get the watershed-based plan ready for to apply for the 319 implementation in the next round. Now, for the first time, we are going to have some flexibilities here for the Commonwealth's environmental justice communities. That means for the same question, if the answer is no, in that case as well, you can apply for a 319 implementation projects and build a watershed-based plan through the 319 implementation fund as well. This is for the first time. This was not there before. And this flexibility was given to us by the Justice 40 mandate. So Justice 40 is a White House initiative and is being tracked by US EPA headquarters. This mandates at least 40% of the benefits of certain federal programs must flow to disadvantaged communities. And 319 program is one of them. And we are very thrilled about this program and the federal support under Justice 40, because this really matches with MassDEP's environmental justice priorities. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the non-federal match requirement for the 319 program. So a match doesn't have to be always like cash. It could be cash, other non-federal grants, or in-kind services. There is something new about the match is that now we will consider any eligible NPS projects statewide as a match. So there will be no watershed or sub-watershed specific requirements. That means that if your project is in one watershed and you are allowed to use a completely different project from a different part of the state to use it as a match. So this is a new flexibility. The conditions are the project should not be previously used as any other non-federal match for any other federal grants. And the timeline for the upcoming RFR match will be October 1st, 2023 to September 30th, 2028. Now, if your potential project directly benefits the environmental justice community of the Commonwealth, and you do not have the match, then we would request you to contact us, the NPS management section, for a discussion. Any of the discussion should happen now, because after the RFR release in November, we will not be able to help with any project-specific support. So please contact us now if you have any project in mind for the EJ communities, and if you do not have the full match, please contact us now to have a discussion. So the theme of our capacity building initiative is meeting communities where they are. And to support that, we developed a NPS roadmap. And I'm going to use the Connecticut River as the road here. So basically, like ideally, the best starting point is when you know whether the concerned water body is part of the list, whether impaired or non-impaired. However, we realized that that is not always the case, that there are many water bodies that are not part of the list. So in that case, we are ready to support, go one step back and provide the support where it is needed. So basically to support the water quality assessment under QAP. And this whole QAP development and doing the water quality assessment can be supported by both 604B base and the BIL funds. Now, whether your water body is part of the list, you can see it in the integrated list of waters. So here I'm going to present some of the MassDEP's tools that are going to be helpful for some steps in this roadmap. And also the goal of this roadmap is to show that wherever you are, you can start with funding as well as the tools that MassDEP created for to help the communities. Now, for if we know that the concerned water body is non-impaired, the next step is to do a healthy watershed protection planning under the 604B base funding, and then implement that planning using the 319 healthy watershed funds to meet the goal of protection of healthy waters. Whereas for impaired water, the first step is to develop the 9-element watershed-based plan. And MassDEP has developed a tool called watershed-based planning tool. Judy is going to go over the tools after me, so she will provide a little more details. And then other part of the implementation design. So all the design and planning can be supported by both 604B base and BIL fund. And through the upcoming 604B RFR, we are going to support climate resiliency planning. And there is another great tool in Massachusetts that's called RMAT tool that could be very helpful for climate resiliency planning as well. Now, all of these could be supported through the 319 capacity building funds by regional coordination, ag coordination, and now EJ coordination as well. And other than these, we also support some technology transfer through the capacity building grants. And finally, the most major funding and most major goal is to construct BMPs to restore the impaired water. And the 319 implementation projects, which has the most funding, can support that. There are some useful tools like Mass Stormwater Handbook, Mass Clean Water Toolkit, which will be helpful for this part as well. And so this is the roadmap that shows that there are funding and there are tools to support as well. Also, what we did is we tried to find what are some of the equity barriers in this roadmap. And to address those barriers, we are going to be presenting the EJ Coordinators Program. So Environmental Justice Coordinators Program are going to be new for both 604B and 319 funds. And I'm going to show you the steps that we are thinking as deliverable for these programs. And also the eligibility is different for this program for both 604B and 319. So let's start with there. The eligible entities for 604 to become 604B EJ coordinators will be regional planning agencies are eligible, whereas for 319, it will be regional planning agencies, watershed associations, environmental support groups. Now, the first step for this is to do the community needs assessment, to understand what are the needs of the communities. Currently, we are doing we have done some assessment at the regional level, but we would like our EJ coordinators to know the needs of their environmental justice communities with this deliverable. And then, as we mentioned, that there are not all the water bodies are there in the list. So the water quality assessment to develop a general QAP, get it approved by MassDEP, provide training to communities to monitor water quality and collect data and submit it to MassDEP. That will be the deliverable under this step. Step 3 is to do the watershed-based, develop the watershed-based plan. Step 4 is to add the climate resiliency component in the planning or design. Both 1, 3, and 4 are the steps that could be achieved through the 319 EJ coordinators as well. With one addition here is number 5. 319 capacity building coordinators will develop, write, and submit at least 2 grant proposals for 319 implementation projects that will directly benefit the EJ communities who should be involved in this process through active collaboration. So active and inclusive collaboration are something that are must from now on. And what do we mean by, so we made active and inclusive community engagement as a central criteria. This is no longer a bonus point. It's going to be a central selection criteria. So we want proposals with active and inclusive community engagement plan. And just to give examples for that, so it should be going beyond unidirectional information sharing. So let's go beyond flyers. The community should be engaged from start to finish. And one great way of involving community are through youth engagement at multiple ages, through multiple activities, citizen science, adding equity modifiers, like facilitating participation for all in your community, overcoming linguistic isolation, use universal signage. These are some of the examples of it, but of course, that's not all. That's a very minimum list of active and inclusive community engagement. So we would definitely need to see a very good active and inclusive community engagement plan in the proposals. So with that, I will give it to Judy to share a little more about our capacity building tools.
Great, thank you, Padmini. All right, so let's go on to the next slide. Well, so as you've probably observed, there is going to be a strong emphasis on active and inclusive community engagement and environmental justice in our grant programs going forward. So to assist you with incorporating community engagement in your grant projects and identifying environmental justice populations in your project areas, the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, or EOEEA, developed an environmental justice policy, which was updated in 2021, and launched a web application called Environmental Justice Populations in Massachusetts, which was updated to reflect 2020 census data. The environmental justice policy identifies 3 basic criteria to determine if a population is an EJ population. So annual median household income, minority, and English language proficiency. And the EJ online map identifies the locations of populations that meet these base criteria, as well as combinations of the criteria. So if you look at the key on the upper right of the slide, you can see the 3 basic criteria, as well as the combinations of the 3. Next slide, please. Next is the watershed-based plan tool. This is also an online application that guides the user through the development of a watershed-based plan. Watershed-based plans identify conditions in watersheds that contribute to water quality degradation and provide a blueprint for communities to use to address their water quality management concerns as they work to restore impaired waters. You've heard a bit about watershed-based plans already. We do strongly encourage communities to develop watershed-based plans for both impaired waters and healthy waters. We will be, as Padmini mentioned, prioritizing environmental justice communities, and to support the development of watershed-based plans for those communities. We have a contractor who helps us with the development of watershed-based plans. So if you're working in an environmental justice community or a watershed that has an environmental justice population, contact us and we can discuss whether or not we can provide that support to you. We've held several training workshops to train users how to use the watershed-based plan tool. There's a link on our grants webpage to one of the workshops if you'd like to sit and watch. I didn't include the link because it's very long, but if you Google MassDEP non-point source grants, it will direct you to that webpage and you can find the link there. And we'll be developing a training video over the next year for the use of the watershed-based plan tool, so stay tuned for that. Next slide, please. Right, Padmini referenced the Climate Resilience Design Standards tool. This was developed by Resilient Massachusetts Action Team, or RMAT, to evaluate climate resiliency of sites and projects. So this online tool evaluates the climate change exposure and the risk rating of a project and recommends climate resilience design standards and best practices guidance to support project implementation. We strongly recommend that applicants run their projects through the tool to identify any climate resiliency related challenges that they might not have anticipated during their planning in order to inform and strengthen their planning efforts. This is a really powerful tool, so we really do suggest that you visit the site and check it out. And we will be providing more information about this tool at the 604B pre-RFR meeting in October. Next slide. The Massachusetts Clean Water Toolkit is an online companion to the Massachusetts Stormwater Handbook. The toolkit provides an overview of non-point source pollution for a variety of different potential source areas, such as agriculture, roads, urban stormwater runoff, and so forth. It has interactive scenarios that depict best management practices that can be installed for various settings. Again, settings such as agriculture, residential properties, roads, etc. And it provides fact sheets for about 127 best management practices that describe the BMP's planning and design considerations, maintenance requirements, and so forth. So if you're looking at a project and you're trying to determine what type of BMP you want to install and some of the specific criteria that go along with that, you might want to visit this tool and look at those fact sheets and see what kind of information they might provide to you. Next slide. And last, but certainly not least, I'm very pleased to provide a sneak peek of a tool that is under development now. Emily referred to this, the Inspire Capacity Building tool. So once it's completed, the Inspire tool will be an online mapping application that will share information about Clean Water Act Section 604B and 319 grants that we've awarded since the inception of our two programs. It will showcase successful non-point source program funded projects throughout the Commonwealth as examples, and it will present a collection of geospatial data layers to help users develop new project ideas for competitive grant proposals. So we're working diligently to complete the tool, and we will announce when it is complete and ready for public use. So that's it for my overview of the tools that are available to help you plan your projects.